February meeting, correct? 1st of February. Welcome back, everyone, and nice to see everyone bright and breezy and all tanned up and ready to go. And welcome members of the public and our staff, members of the press, and all our international visitors on webcam. Is that all going? So, very good. Now, if I could just ask Councillor Tonganui Kingi from the Turangi area to, if you could avail us with a karakia, please, Councillor Kingi. Thank you. Thank you very much, Councillor Kingi. Item number 1, apologies. Looks like we have a full house, so no apologies. Great. Any conflicts of interest pertaining to any of the items today by any of the councillors? No, that being the case, no problem. So we'll go to item number 3, confirmation of the minutes, the ordinary council meeting on the 13th of November. Do I have any clarification or points of clarification of those minutes, please? It was held here 9:30 in the morning. No problem. Okay, could I have a mover, please, that those minutes be accepted? Thank you. Moved by Councillor Kingi, seconded by Councillor Jollins. All those in favour, please say aye. Those against? Carried. Ordinary council meeting on the 12th of December 2017. Any matters arising or clarification of those minutes? Councillor Boddy. I don't think.
Through the chair, it is on there under 1 apologies received for His Worship the Mayor and Councillor Truman.
Thank you. Yep, cool. Okay, any points of clarification on that? Could I have a mover, please, for those minutes? Moved by Councillor Rankin, seconded by Councillor Hickling. All those in favour, please say aye. Those against? Carried. Right, item number 4.1, Turangi Tongariro Community Board meeting on the 14th of November. Moved by Councillor Kingi, seconded by Councillor Rankin. All those in favour, please say aye. Those against? Carried. 4.2, Turangi Reserves Management Plan Committee meeting on the 30th of November. Moved by Councillor Kingi, seconded by Councillor Stewart. All those in favour, please say aye. Those against? Carried. 4.3, Ordinary Fences, Roading, Reserves and Dogs Committee meeting, 5th of December. Any points of clarification? Councillor Park.
Yes, just through the chair, I do appreciate that we've just been through the Christmas period where people have not been around, but I just wondered in relation to 4.3 if we had any further update on whether we sort of tabled it to ask officers to go away and see if there was any other incidents of that nature where a commercial business operates a commercial business off a reserve lease. No, not yet. That's fine. Thank you.
Okay. Right. Could I have a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Hickling. Thank you. As chair. Seconded by Councillor Park. All those in favour, please say aye. Those against? Carried. Ordinary 4.4, Ordinary Kinloch Representative Group meeting, the inaugural meeting, I believe, the 11th of December. Any points of clarification on those minutes? Councillor Boddy.
Thank you. On page 40, in regards of the long-term plan, right at the top of the page 4.4, there's talk of the concern about TDC officers advising developers that they could make section sizes smaller. As a result, high density housing on Kinrick Road and similarly the new Loch Eagles development. What's the story behind our lot sizes? Is there Is there a minimum or a maximum?
Yes. Mr. Green, looks like
So
that.
through you, Mr. Chairman, yes, in Kinloch it's the only residential place in the district where there is a minimum and an average, and there were concerns raised at that meeting. We're planning on bringing back quite a comprehensive report back to the next Kinloch group meeting, which will work through each of those developments and what the situation is behind them.
So what is the minimum Kinloch size?
800 square metres in the area that's been talked about here, but it does vary depending on the zone within the Kinloch area that you're in. There's about 4 or 5 different zones within that
So it
site.
could be less.
That's a minimum, but if you can apply for a resource consent to get less if you can justify the adverse environmental effects.
So we are going to receive further information on it.
The Kinloch Community Group will, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions on the Kinloch minutes? Could I have a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Rankin, seconded by Councillor Jollins. All those in favour, please say aye. Those against? Carried. Right. 5.1, increase in value of contract TDC road marking 2013 to 2016. Mr. Dennis Lewis, Infrastructure Manager. Good afternoon, Dennis.
Good afternoon, Your Worship, councillors. I'll take this item as read. Essentially, it's an increase in the value of the road marking contract by $30,000 through to the 30th of June 2018, and it's for some new road marking that needs to be done in that period.
Thank you, Dennis. Any questions of Dennis? Councillor Boddy.
Thank you, Mr. Lewis. In regards to the road markings, this is the white lines on the roads, and when they undertake the contract, do they also have to do the give-way writing on the road?
Yes, they're required to remark all of the current markings.
Well, I'm sure in the area that I come from that while the new white lines are there, the give-way markings are not on the road.
Oh, sorry, the give way marking is no longer marked on the road. That's the current standard.
Okay, so there's just now the sign, no markings at
Yeah,
all.
you've got the sign and the marking. Yep, and that's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Is it you mark the road still with the
Yes.
give-way sign?
Yep.
Yep.
So this contract is for remarking what's on the road.
So John's got a query.
My
Sorry,
concern
Councillor
that
Boddy's got a query.
it might not have been done. I've seen them do the yellow markings, I've seen them do the white markings, but I haven't seen the give way, and it seems to be more than one occasion I've come across it.
Oh, so
Hence
you're
my
saying
question.
that there are current give way words that haven't been remarked?
Well, if the white line looks like it's new, and the white markings of the giveaway sign look like they'd be old, they haven't been done.
Right.
Yeah.
We certainly check on that. We do have someone that monitors that quite closely.
Okay, thank you.
Right. Any other questions of Mr. Lewis? All right. The city. The resolution there. Sorry.
Council. So the resolution. I've lost it now too.
Need a hard copy. Where are we? Sorry. Yep. Okay. Resolution there. Steady. Approves the increase in value of contract road marking 2013-16 with Road Runner Markers Limited, which expires on the 30th of June 2018 by 30,000 plus GST, to a total of 912,313,060 cents plus GST. Correct. Do I have a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Hickling, seconded by Councillor Rankin. All those in favour, please say aye. Those against, carried. Right, item 5.2, upgrade of Taupo street lights with LED luminaires. Mr. Lewis, again.
Your Worship, this is for the installation of the luminaires. If you recall, prior to Christmas we had a tender recommendation for the purchase of the luminaires. So this is for the installation of those luminaires. There's a recommendation there for Downer. They were the lowest price conforming tender. I'll take the item as read and answer any questions.
Okay, any questions, Mr. Lewis? Councillor Park.
Yes, thanks, Dennis. Just with regards to a current, one of the tenderers who has currently looked after our streetlights, is it just based on the the weighting attributes that has.
That's
Okay.
correct.
I just think this is a wonderful opportunity, and it's fantastic that we've had regional funding to pay for the majority of this, so I'm happy to move this recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Park. Seconded by Councillor Stewart, actually. So Councillor Park and seconded by Councillor Stewart. What is exactly the central government investment?
85%.
5%, cool. All right, move Councillor Park, seconded by Councillor Stewart. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried.
I'll just answer that one. Providing the luminaires have been purchased before the 30th of June, we've got until the end of December to get the install done. NZTA recognise that this is across the whole of the country, and it's a challenge to do the whole of the country in that space of time.
Right, thank you, Mr. Lewis. 5.3, new road names, Whariwaka East Subdivision. Mr. Scott Davenport. Afternoon, Scott.
Good afternoon. So I've got that report is read, but just briefly, road names require approval from council. Purpose of this item, the requirements we have is that emergency services and mobility, and that work will be done by the developer, and so the recommendation is that road names will be approval for the subdivision.
Very good. Any questions of Scott?
Yep, Mr. Chairman, is that the total names of the road? I see Manganui Road, is that an existing name?
Mangamahu.
On the map at the back, there's a blue road, something or other drive.
Yeah, so that's the existing road that's
Okay.
service that's going currently through.
Okay,
That's the subdivision that precedes this one.
okay. And which is Roto Road on the map?
Ropo Crescent.
Close.
Oh, Roto. Yep.
Oh, I see. Yep, thanks, Scott. Yep. And Pura Rise, that was an existing road, was it? It's in green. Just below the blue road at the top, because that's not on the list.
It may be one that was dealt with in the previous subdivision.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Lovely. Any other questions of Scott? Good, quite reasonably easy names to pronounce, which is good too. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, recommendation there. Would someone like to move that, please? Councillor Tonganui Kingi, seconded by Councillor Williamson. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. It's against? Carried. 5.4, Acacia Bay water options to meet the drinking water standards for New Zealand. Mr. Lewis, again. And Mr. Cordell, was it? Yep, and Mr. Cordell. Afternoon, Mike. Right, floor is yours.
Again, if you recall, prior to Christmas we had a workshop with Council regarding the Acacia Bay water supply and upgrade to meet the drinking water standard. We went through the options with you at that time, and we indicated at that time that we'd bring a report seeking a decision. This is that report, and I'll pass it over to Mike if he wants to run through the report, but it's essentially what we went through with the workshop just prior to Christmas.
Yeah, so there's nothing new in the report that you wouldn't have heard already in the workshop, so I'll just take questions if there are any.
Okay, questions? So we've got two options here, right?
So the two options, I'll run through them quickly, are so the project is to upgrade Acacia Bay's water supply to meet the drinking water standards. The two options are build a new plant in Acacia Bay, or the alternative to connect Taupo and Acacia Bay and merge the schemes and supply water from our plant on Lake Terrace.
Okay. And costs? So we got identified some costs here.
Yep. So the estimate to build a new plant in Acacia Bay is some detail on page 2, $6.2 million. And to build a pipeline and pump station from town is 4.5. And there's also a precursor project. If you want to connect to Acacia Bay, we have to do an upgrade to the plant in Taupo first. That's $1.75 million. We're saying that forecasting that the plant upgrade in Taupo is required regardless of the option. We've pushed this plant to 99% capacity a couple of years ago on a dry summer, and so we haven't taken the $1.75 million into account when comparing the two options on the rates impact. That's because that's occurring on both, so the increases are comparing 6.2 and 4.5.
Okay. Councillor Hickling.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just need to have some surety that we're sort of not putting all our eggs in one basket, and that, you know, I just feel that we perhaps should be looking at two water supplies. I understand the saving through the maintenance, and through the workshop I was for the one option of Lake Terrace, but I'd just like some assurance, because if we have a major earthquake like the Canterbury one, we just put all our eggs into one basket. Control Gates bridge gets knocked out. How do we get supply across through there? Okay, we've got the ETA and trucks can go around, but yeah, I need some assurance that we're not, you know, because it's a big decision. We are probably only will save over $1 million, which is $1 million admittedly, and there'll be savings further with maintenance, but could not the Acacia Bay finish up supplying Nooka Howe and Marper Road and all around this side of the town? Yeah.
Okay.
I just need some assurance that.
Excellent question, Councillor, and there's more than one question there. Yeah. I'll try and answer them all. In terms of earthquakes and the size, it depends on the size of the earthquake, what impact is going to be on our infrastructure. There is no guarantee that if you had an earthquake of any significance that's going to knock out the Control Gates Bridge, for instance, that it's going to knock out the Taupo plant and the Acacia Bay plant. And asking any of us engineers to forecast what size earthquake we're going to have and what the impact is a little bit challenging, to say the least. Certainly the Taupo plant has been built to withstand, I think it's 1 in 100 type event, so there's a lot of effort into the foundations and the retaining walls and the like, but there's also all of the pipe work, so I can't give you an assurance.
We did talk about this amongst ourselves in quite some depth, so there's a couple of points. We do have two water mains running, one across the bridge and one underneath the harbour at the moment as well. So there's dual feed there. There's also, when you think about the relative scale of these plants, the Taupo plant is 25 MLD, 30 and 35 after the upgrades. Acacia Bay will be 2.5, 3, so it's quite a lot smaller. We're also going to have Kinloch water supply on that side, which it's not physically connected, but there are opportunities for, you know, tankering water if that supply was still cut in place. So.
I just went through all the parts that that the fact that the lake separates the two, and the two parts of town, the north, should we say, or the west and the east. And yeah, that's just me thinking.
Yeah.
No, those are all good questions, and I think there's three things in this decision. One's the economics of it, one's resilience, which is what we're talking about. How resilient can we be, and what's the difference between depending on the earthquake and the size, there's different responses that you have, and we've got contingency plans depending on what that happens. And then the third one is the other considerations that we've got in the paper around fluoride and other things like that. So that'd be the three considerations that you've got to take in mind when you're making this decision. I think the engineers have talked about the resilience to you, but it really does come down to in a major event you're going to be coping with that sort of thing anyway. Keep your fingers crossed. And I guess when you think of most urban areas are served by one plant. So I think probably there's probably only us and one other district that I can think of, being Queenstown Lakes, which has the same number of plants servicing small communities, and that definitely brings us challenges in terms of the ongoing maintenance, the ongoing operations, and in fact the ongoing compliance with the drinking water standards. That's why this council is probably behind the pack of councils in terms of compliance with drinking water standards, because we're having to do it for a whole lot of little plants, which then creates major affordability issues, because as you know, water is funded by the people on that scheme, and that the less users on the scheme, the less affordable any upgrade is to that plant.
It's really cheap. Thank you, Worship. Yeah, I think
Williamson.
obviously Council Leckie makes a very, very, some very good points. Going forward, obviously, I understand from what we're hearing, it's not 1.2 million to upgrade our treatment plant to accommodate Acacia Bay.
1.75.
1.75. Obviously, projecting forward to 2056, was it still enough capacity in that plant to accommodate?
Yeah, there's one more stage of upgrade that can occur after this proposed upgrade, which would take the plant capacity to 35 MLD, and we see that as sufficient capacity for our forecasts. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
Councillor
Harvey?
Just to refresh my memory, how far through Acacia Bay are we talking? Right out to Mapara Road? Right, how far?
So the Acacia Bay scheme supplies most of the Mapara Valley.
So it would all be in part of that. Thank you.
All right. Yes, Councillor Boddy.
Chairman, could I support Councillor Hickling's comments? I find it rather interesting that 3 years ago we did a long-term plan, and if I can quote from it, it says that this year, or 17-18, begin the construction of the Acacia Bay water treatment plant upgrade to meet the drinking standards. I'm just wondering why we made that decision in the last long-term plan, but looking at another alternative. I also have a question in regards of the, and it's mentioned in this report, and that's to do with fluoride in the water. Now, I'm not going to argue for or against, I'm arguing for the right to choose, and if Acacia Bay kicks into Taupo, they're not going to have the right to choose, they're going to get it. So I'm interested in what the report says on page of the agenda 71, and it states the option of a new water treatment plant at Acacia Bay allows for the possibility to continue to provide a water supply to Acacia Bay post the upgrade that does not have fluoride addition. And then the next paragraph down, it states it will be complex and costly to provide Acacia Bay with a water supply from Taupo that is free of fluoride without removing fluoride addition from. That's a contradiction.
So the way I read...
So the first question about the long-term plan, 3 years ago, yes, that was the plan, and we're always on the lookout for cost-effective and better value for our ratepayers. So before we progressed any further on the building of a new plant, we re-evaluated all of the scenarios, and hence why we're here today.
Could I then, Mr. Chairman, just go to page 83, where it states the lack of robustness, issues stemming from the late Terrace water treatment plant would directly affect the Acacia Bay Mapara communities. The provision of a dedicated water treatment plant for Acacia Bay community provides the community with a level of robustness and removes the resilience on the maintenance of the Taupo Acacia Bay infrastructure. At this stage, I'm not going to prejudge. This is going out for consultation, so I think the factors have to be borne in mind while we do that. But I'm also interested, it seems to be some different figures in regards of costs. If we go to page 79, it states that to connect to the treatment plant here would be 6,219,000, and sorry, for Acacia Bay, and then 5,337 for Lake Terrace. If we turn to page 81, the first one is 6219's there, but the next one down, Acacia Bay network upgrades, is 4572. Why is there the difference?
This is the way the consultants have allocated the costs of the upgrade to the Taupo treatment plant. So they've, in the earlier figure, which is higher for Acacia Bay, they've allocated a part cost of upgrading that plant to the Acacia Bay project, but that's when we're talking about what are the costs of our projects. We've got quite discrete projects. We've got a Taupo water treatment plant upgrade and Acacia Bay connection. So the way we've presented it is separating. They've pulled them together to try and form a balanced cost view, which is somewhat difficult because to interpret when we have to do the upgrade to the Taupo plant anyway at some point, and so that's the
So the difference between the two figures, one on page 79 and the other one, is because of the upgrades to get us at 35 million litres a day?
Yes, so they've taken a part of that cost and applied it to the Acacia Bay connection to town project.
Okay.
To try and draw a comparative, cost, a fair cost analysis between the two.
Okay.
But from a financial point of view, we have to build the Taupo upgrade anyway, is what we're saying. So,
Okay.
regardless of scenario that happens.
Thank you.
Councillor Rankin.
Through the chair, I just wanted to advise Councillor White, and probably everybody knows this, I'm sure all of you do, but the previous government made the decision about fluoride to the health board, and whenever there is a change in any water supply, they make the decision about whether there should be fluoride or not, and they're obsessed with fluoride. So the reality is, it's going to be in every water supply of which the decision is made by the health board. It could have done between 19. So in case you didn't have that information.
I certainly,
Whatever changes here, it's going to go into the
I certainly respect Councillor Rankin to say what she has said. I'm just making the comment that I believe it's a matter of personal choice, and I think we have to show leadership in that regard.
Yeah, your worship.
Okay, Councillor Williamson.
I think, as Gareth has mentioned, obviously, as we all know, it's boils down to economics, resilience, and fluoride is another important issue. Will be, as it goes out for consultation. But if you're, with the ratepayers having to still wear another or double their water rate, that's a pretty big deal. In terms of the ongoing cost, I think you'll probably find there'll be not too much support for that. I would imagine. But I do take the point about resilience and having perhaps the option of two water supplies going forward as merits in that. But I think we just have to be try and be relevant, some common sense in terms of the economics of it. And we can't foresee around resilience, we can't foresee what may or may not happen. But so I think on that balance, it's we have to make a call. I think on probably more the economics of it.
Okay, Councillor Park.
Just through the chair, having done an LTP or two, we have to go out with a preferred option. It doesn't mean that's the option that is going to be selected at the end of the day. But we do have to go out with an option and then ask the community for their feedback. So I see merit in both sides, but I think that where we've come to is about the economics and value for ratepayers, and I'm quite happy with the recommendation to go out that way, and let's hear what the community want to do. I mean, if it's outweighed big time that the preferred option is one, then so be it, but we're not going to know until we get past this agenda item and put it out to them to help us make an informed decision.
Any other commentary?
Just thank you.
Councillor
Just through the
Grimes.
chair,
When we do go out for consultation, the first option was the standalone treatment, but I don't know if we're deliberately vague, but we don't talk about the potential locations. And I mean, I'm not saying we would signal a site, but we say there's difficulty in finding a site, so we need to be practical here and maybe give people a steer on a likelihood of where it might be, because that may influence some people's decisions. Yeah.
We did have one site in mind a couple of 3 years ago, and that was an area of land adjacent to a property that council owned up, and I can't remember the name of the street. Yep. We're now looking at leasing some land, and we have only initiated discussions adjacent to the wastewater treatment plant.
But the engineer's preferred option is to run it back into town.
Yes.
The problem with, I guess, signalling anything in there about those land options is that automatically then changes your property market, whether it be lease or buy. So we have to be pretty careful about what we say and how we say that.
Can happen.
So what we are confident in is that from an engineering perspective it can happen, and any plant, if you put enough money at it, you can design it to mitigate your effects. You can make it look like a house if you want to spend enough money doing it. So it can happen, and we've got Public Works Act to, if we really had to acquire land. But of course that they're all pretty hard, blunt tools to get to. So hence we prefer to try and do other things. But it is a practical option one. But the preferred option is option 2.
Okay, all right, so the recommendation is there. Moved by Councillor Harvey, seconded by Councillor Park. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Okay, we'll look forward to the feedback on that. Right, 5.5, Civic Administration Building Project. Nick? Nick, the floor is yours, sir. Good afternoon, Nick.
This item should be relatively straightforward. It's seeking to do a couple of things. First of all, seeking confirmation that the Great Lakes Centre is your preferred site. Secondly, that you wish officers to move on towards the next phase of, I guess, due diligence process and do the master planning for that location. Thirdly, it's looking for some clear direction that you wish the museum to be part of that master planning process. And finally, it almost looks like a little bit of an orphan. It's looking for adoption of the supporting information regarding this building and its funding in the LTP. That last part could have gone into this item or another item. It's sat in here simply because it's directly related to the building. I won't go over a whole lot of detail. You've done that essentially ad nauseum through a range of workshops, so I'll leave it at that point. Happy to take any questions. Well, essentially, it's totally up to you. This is simply about confirming the direction that you've already provided officers in workshops to enable us to go forward and do the next phase of work. It's not making any final decisions, it's not making any specific commitment. It's simply giving us as officers direction to carry on and do the next phase of work to assist your future decision making.
Yes, after last week speaking to Wayne Marriott, I was really excited about looking at, what the possibilities could be like. So I'm for this recommendation. I just think we just need to be very careful that I think that there are probably some of our ratepayers and residents out there who are presuming that this is going on the green space, as in was in, sort of talked about 10 years ago, where that in fact is totally incorrect.
Correct. Yeah, you'll see in the report we talked about specifically the local purpose reserve around the Great Lakes Centre to give it a very clear definition.
Nick, through the report, and I see where you refer to the precinct.
Yes.
Could you outline the boundaries of what you perceive is the precinct, please?
There are no hard and fast boundaries. It's simply a term referring to that broader area. As you will remember through the commercial industrial structure plan, we talked a lot about linkages through from the town centre down to the boat harbour.
Yes.
I'd expect that those linkages will be part of this master planning exercise. We talked a lot about the connection across from the recreation area on the Tongariro domain to the commercial area across Tongariro Street. Again, those connections will be really important. It's not about saying one side of Tongariro Street is the boundary or the other. It's more to do with those connections in the general space.
I can possibly get to the. I can probably get to the heart of the question. Whilst the domain, and the northern domain in particular, would be taken into account in the structure planning, or in the planning exercise to look at where the linkages come from, nothing in this would allow officers to go away and look at putting any structures to the north of the Great Lakes Centre, so onto the domain. So the area that you're talking about for a potential building is very clearly between a realigned Story Place, which we've always talked about, straightening it up to go down to the boat harbour, and your existing building platforms.
Yeah.
So not necessarily the existing buildings. It may be that this piece of work says let's demolish something around there, we don't know, but that platform, that envelope, Great Lakes Centre, library, and to that road is what you've always talked about as being the envelope.
I totally agree with that, but in the structure plan, and I've got a feeling we were supposed to take it out, but there was the road that leads through the domain, the grassed area, connecting to Tamamutu Street.
This will not,
I do not want to see that in the precinct or in the calculations.
This will not have that.
We've got that assurance.
You can minute that right now. This will not have that.
Please minute it. Otherwise, this community is going to blow up.
Look, the only relevance of the northern domain in terms of this piece of work will be the linkages from the domain back through into this precinct and this Great Lakes Centre, and from the town centre back. So when we're doing it, when we look at where doors are and what architectural things go, that there's
no problem.
People can walk from one to the other. There is no intention of doing any physical work on that side of the domain.
Okay. And can I ask another question, please? How are we proposing to accommodate car parking facilities?
That's the purpose of doing the master planning, is to consider a whole range of different issues and options. Car parking will be one of those. You'll remember through the commercial industrial structure plan.
It just don't actually highlight in the report actual car parking.
And if that's a really high priority for you as a council, then we will bring that back as a very specific item in the scope. Because you remember we've talked about coming back to you in April with a very clear defined scope for the master plan. There'll be an opportunity in that scope to be very clear about your parameters around car parking. Also an opportunity to identify specific elements that you might not want, such as the roading or building within the north domain. So you've got that control through setting the scope for the master planning exercise.
Those words have all been minuted, please.
Just one
Thank
other
you.
question. If in accepting these recommendations 1 through to 4, does that then mean that the other 2 sites, option 2 and 3, are therefore released?
No.
Right.
No, this is simply a process of, I guess, doing due diligence, collecting more information about the Great Lakes Centre site. We know quite a lot about the other sites. They're relatively straightforward. You take the car park, Tuwharetoa Street car park as an example. There's not a great deal of complexity associated with that site. This site, the GLC site, has a lot of complexity given all the different variables involved there. That's why we need to do more work on this site.
I guess it's
We
really
will come back at the end of the master planning exercise, and at that point you get to make a call. You get to look at all the relevant information and make a decision about this site or that site being your preference.
You remember the discussion that we had at the workshop where when we talked about building a museum which happened to have offices in it in this location, and I think the discussion from several people, Councillor Hickling led the discussion, I think, was if you aren't building a museum then this may not remain our preferred site, you know, if you're not able to link it in. So, you know, if you were looking at either the other 2 options, Tuwharetoa Street car park or the old Lake Terrace site, they have to stay on the table in case you don't like what you see out of this master planning process. So at the completion of this, you then make that decision.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thanks, Nick. Look, when I was reading this report, I suppose the recommendations really do sum up where this needs to go. But I suppose what excites me a little bit about this is when we talk about our civic administration building, just those very words are like, oh God, boring, very square. What we had was a presentation from a suitably qualified person who started to open our eyes to the opportunity and the potential for the opportunity, and I think that's the thing that's probably guiding me along this theme of thought, which is, if we talk about the other things, we've talked about the museum and supporting parts to this vision. I suppose it does change, the whole view of the project. So I think the actual heading is probably a little bit wrong. Whilst the administration building, I guess, is a key part of it. Like Gareth alluded to, it all adds value, and it all, I guess, leads down to a particular vision or a particular theme that we're trying to achieve down there. So I'm certainly for starting to head down that road. I think this is a responsible way to approach it, because we just don't know what we don't know, and at the end of the day, once you start to walk down that road, it might be just something that we just can't do, but we don't know that yet. So I'm certainly supportive of the recommendations in front of us, just to move us along that pathway to explore what might be potential.
Councillor Kingi. Any other Councillor Johns?
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a couple of questions from me, Nick, and a lot of it's in regard to the scope of the master plan. We're talking about the museum, but will we also talk about future-proofing plans for the library and the GLC within that master plan? Because I would be reluctant to design something and then we haven't future-proofed ourselves for expansion in those other areas.
The eyesight as well.
Sure.
So we've got a range of facilities in that location, and the whole purpose of this master planning exercise is to look at what their future holds and how best they are integrated.
Sure. Okay. Just if you could bear with me, just a couple of other quick questions. Our commercial industrial structure plan. Am I correct in that we never assumed that we would put TDC offices in that civic centre if we ever built one? What was our plan outlined there?
So what the structure plan says is there are a range of civic facilities in that location at this point in time. That council wishes to see more activity in that location and expects or understands that one of the ways of achieving that is to put more civic facilities there. Doesn't say exactly what those will be, in what shape or form or when, leaves that open.
Sure.
It's simply a concept that's a heart to our town centre, and we wish to see that grow over time.
Okay, so I guess the discussion will be in the consultation whether that heart includes our TDC admin.
Exactly.
Okay, just a couple of quick other ones is, I understand, I was just doing a bit of desk research too, there's some work that's being done in the space around our cultural heart. There was a Luart report done back in the early 2004. Will we revisit some of that work that was done that as part of the master plan?
So that report and a number of others were provided to Mr. Marriott, Wayne Marriott, who came and talked to you. So they fed into some of his thinking. They will certainly form part of that background information.
Okay. And I'm nearly at the end of my questions. Is it possible to include in the scope, I'm very keen on this, if we are looking at investigating a master plan like this, how sustainable it is as an option for our community. So I think it's really important that we understand the potential funding models that we might utilise to help support this type of development, because there are many options and we need to look at the sustainability of it in a community of the size that we've got. Okay, and the last one, the way I read this report is as we develop the master plan, you've got to set up a project team yet if we go ahead, but a key part of forming that master plan will be having consultation with key stakeholders across the community in the development of that plan?
Well, what you've heard from Wayne and from others is that a project of this scale and this importance to the community only ever gets traction if the community buys in.
Sure.
That's going to require us to spend some time and energy making sure that they understand why we're doing it and what benefits come out of it and how they would like to see it shaped going forward.
Yeah, because I think it's important to understand how people want to use that space.
Yes.
Yeah, for what purpose. Okay, thank you.
Councillor Rankin.
Through the Chair, my question's around the funding too. Will you be able to give us an indication during this process of the kind of government funding that might be available? Because I know that they are willing, well, the previous government was willing to contribute a significant amount to something that houses a disaster recovery centre, for example.
Yes.
Museums get a lot of funding philanthropically and in terms of the government. So will you be giving us an indication of what that kind of support might be? Because that could be a major contribution to the cost.
Most certainly. You will, at the end of the master planning, you'll be at a point where you'll have a whole lot of information about the GLC site. You've already got information about the other sites. You'll then go out to the community and you'll talk to the community about that range of options. As part of that conversation, we have to have that information around funding implications and opportunities. It's crucial to understand the different options.
And just further to that, at the workshop and in his paper, Mr. Marriott talked about museums having a third. So the model around the country is a third local government, a third central government, and a third other, which is your other business and philanthropic. I can never say that word. Philanthropic. So that's sort of the business model for a museum. Depending on what other activities you put in there, that changes, but that's the sort of the ballpark figure.
Councillor Harvey.
Thank you. Look, it was very exciting to hear the presentation. Was it this Monday? Last Monday. Last Monday. So a lot of the questions that have been asked today were covered during that workshop, and there was exciting funding options, which was fantastic, right down to designs. He's designed museums in the past. It was really quite exciting. So I think that everything has probably been covered, and I think we should move ahead.
Okay, any other questions of Mr. Carroll? Councillor Boddy.
Could just make the comment, the structural plan doesn't actually mention or doesn't promote a TDC office in that particular area, does it?
It doesn't specifically say Taupo District Council should have a civic administration building here.
Okay.
No, it just talks about putting more civic facilities into that location, one of which could or could not be office activity.
It also says doesn't say that it shouldn't be either. So
It's page 53. The other question I raise is, I was delighted with the presentation in regards of a museum, but my thinking is straying away a little bit in regards of the options for a civic building, whatever size it would be. I'm very conscious we have, 23,000 ratepayers, I think, in our district. And while a large amount of funding will come from outside the district, hopefully, we have to bear that in mind. I'm all for the museum, etc. I have no problem with that. But I am a little bit disappointed, and Councillor Park raised it in regards of the other two sites, that when we're going to go out to have an option, we don't also include those that might not be our preferred option. So the ratepayer or the citizens of the district can actually look at what those other alternatives are. So at this stage, I'm not prepared to support the resolution until we as a council actually see some paperwork on those other options.
So maybe I can help to answer that. So those other options you have there, and you have the because they are just talking about civic administration buildings. So you're talking about the $15 million that we've always talked about for either the old Lake Terrace site or the other site, the Te Whare Street car park. Obviously, not using the Lake Terrace site has an income line there as well. The purpose of this recommendation, though, and what we're asking for, is to simply go away and do the work that then enables you to do exactly what you say, and for the community to do what you say, in terms of, do we spend X dollars on the Great Lakes Centre to build a museum with an office on it, and it will cost us this amount, or do we spend this amount over on one of those other two sites, which gives you a civic administration building that nobody wants except for staff. So this is enabling us to have that, or for the community to have that conversation and weigh up where their priorities lie. Without that, the only answers we've got is like what we're given with you, which is there's no detail. You know, we can't say to them, it will cost you X dollars to do this at this site, because we don't know.
Councillor Park?
Yeah, for the, we have been through this a few times in and I think it's good for the public to hear some of the concerns that we've had around the table, but I'm happy to move this resolution. I think that going forward, to look at this site, which actually isn't my preferred site for a administration building in the first place, is really exciting and something that would be really bold and brave to do. So I'd really, really like to have a look at what that looks like before we just settle on building a building full of offices, for offices. So yeah, happy to move the recommendations 1 through to 4.
Okay, thank you. Moved and seconded. Just to clarify Councillor Body's point, so the second option, the second and third option will be in the long-term plan as a statement, or how will it be in there? It won't be in there, or will be in there?
That'll be up to you at the point when you start to look at the long-term plan. So you remember, we're not talking about putting any of this into the current long-term plan that you're working on. We are suggesting that we put $15 million in, because we're saying that would have to be spent anyway, regardless of the site. We're not looking at putting anything in the long-term plan about this site, the other sites.
Okay.
We're saying that will be an LTP amendment once you've got this information and you know where you're going.
Okay.
So at that point, you say to the community, through your long-term plan consultation process, this is our preferred site for these reasons, this is how much it's going to cost, here are the other options for this, it's going to cost that, what do you think? And then the community gets an opportunity to have a say.
Okay.
So therefore, Mr. Chairman, in regards of the paper that's going out for consultation, we won't be mentioning the civic complex, is that right?
It'll provide the $15 million spread over a couple of years, because again, regardless of where it is, we're realistic that we have to spend that money. What we do, and whether or not that's enough, depending on what else you put in, is yet to be determined based on this piece of work.
So effectively, the document's going to say we're allowing $50 million over a given period towards something that we're not quite sure yet.
Correct.
Of.
Correct.
No mention of either ors, no mention of prefers, nothing.
Because we don't have those facts yet until we do this piece of work.
Well, if that's the case, I will accept the resolution.
Okay. All right, it's been moved by Councillor Park, seconded by Councillor Harvey. All those in favour, please say aye. Those against, carried. Thank you. Thanks, Nick. Right, 5.6 Lake Ohakuri Jetty. We've got, who have we got here? Ella?
Afternoon, Council.
Good afternoon, Ella.
So this report is to consider a request from a member of the public to accept ownership of a pontoon jetty to be installed at Lake Ohakuri. The report recommends that Council decline to accept ownership due to cost, risk and liability reasons outlined in the report. I'll take the report as read, and I'd like to introduce Chloe Walker, who's here today in her capacity as a member of the public at Aotearoa, and I think she would like to speak to Council on this item.
Okay.
Thanks.
Hi Chloe, how are you? Welcome back.
Thanks. It's a bit strange to be on the other side of the table today, but
Yeah. If you just want to turn your buzzer on and turn yours off, if that's all right, Ella. Thank you. Okay, Chloe, nice to see you.
thank you. Thank you for having me here today. As Ella mentioned, I live in Atimuri village and am a member of the wider Atimuri Ohakuri community and have been involved in the fundraising for the pontoon that we have successfully fundraised to get replaced for Ohakuri Dam. And I guess just really today, unfortunately Barry, who has put the request in, was unable to attend, so he asked if anybody else from the community would be available, and I said, oh yeah, come along and have a wee chat. And I guess really just to support what you will have seen in the attachments from him, there is significant community support for this to go in. It's been quite disappointing to lose the jetty that we've got at Ohakuri. We've got one on Lake Atimuri, but nothing on Ohakuri at the moment. It's a pretty big health and safety risk at the moment. It's not enjoyable for recreation users in the same way as it has been in the past. And so it's been great to get community buy-in to be able to purchase the jetty as it stands. And really what he's looking to do is to gift that to the Taupo community, to the council, because we don't have a specific organisation for that at the moment. So, and he doesn't want to personally have it under his name and have the consents all under his name, which has certain, obviously if he does, you know, leave our community or other things, that's kind of from a succession perspective a bit of a challenge. So, yeah.
Right, so what we've got is quite a highly visible part of the river, isn't it? And it's used very much by locals. Yes. And they've got a jetty that is existing use, but they want to replace it.
Well, there's no jetty now. Mercury removed the jetty last year because it was in disrepair and because of their perspective around increased health and safety.
Right.
And risks associated with that jetty. And there are other jetties along the river. I know that the council owns one at Atimuri, which is beside that launch ramp. There's another one at the Mihi Bridge, which is, at the Tudekau Road Bridge, which is, again, in reasonable disrepair, but like a few, it's actually on the other side, so it's Rotorua's
okay,
side,
so we technically own those ones that
I believe you
about?
own the Atimuri one.
Right, okay.
Maybe you...
We don't own any. We reluctantly maintain some, but we don't have any on our asset base. Okay. So we've inherited the management of some of them. Yeah.
Okay, but the others are on the Rotorua, but are owned by Rotorua District, are they? Or
I'm not sure.
Okay, all right. So how do we? The community need to be applauded for getting out, fundraising, getting this thing built. How can we achieve them doing this? Can we have an indemnity or something like that we're not ongoing for liability or maintenance and all that sort of thing? Basically, we want it to happen. Well, I personally would love it to happen, but we don't want to be responsible for the little old lady falling off the boat going into the river, So how do we is there any way of getting around it, Ella?
So you can't contract out of your health and safety obligations, those will remain.
Yeah.
I have prepared an alternative resolution if you decide to accept ownership that is basically some words and conditions in agreement with Mr. Murphy, and those conditions would reduce risk for council. So they would be things like receiving a report from an engineer that the structure had been installed properly, receiving advice from the manufacturer of the product or a qualified professional on maintenance recommendations, because at this stage we're not sure what the recommendations are to maintain the pontoon. Other conditions would be obviously that the consents with Waikato Regional Council and Mercury are transferred to council, and that we're satisfied with the conditions of those consents. So there is an alternative, I've got it here, an alternative wording for a resolution if you do decide you do see benefit to the community that outweighs the cost and liability to council. Also a condition would be that council satisfied it can feasibly maintain and monitor the jetty to a professional standard. You'll note that it's in Ohakuri, so it is relatively an isolated asset for assets owned by council, and we would need to be satisfied that we can monitor it appropriately.
Cool. Councillor Park?
I suppose this is on the other side of Hook Falls, so it's probably, I don't know, but I was just wondering, being a structure on water, what is iwi's or the hapu in that area, what are their feelings about the structure?
So Mr. Murphy is consulting with Raukawa at the moment about their views on the structure, and that's a requirement for him getting resource consent with the Waikato Regional Council, and yes, they'll take into account iwi's views on the structure.
Councillor Truman? I think that what they're saying is though that they're happy to sign something that will not cost us anything. Correct? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the community have we will maintain it ourselves, but I guess it comes down to what was in her report.
How many people use it? Would use it?
Oh, I couldn't give you a specific number, but in summer it's incredibly well used. There's only 2 access ways now onto Lake Ohakuri up to Paradise, up to Oraki Karako, 3 if you count the Mihi Bridge, but that's a very long way away. It's a very inaccessible lake apart from those 2 sites to access that lake. So it's very popular for boats, and it is a lovely area. We go stand up paddleboarding there and kayaking. It's a great space, and it has been disappointing to lose the jetty.
Any other comments, Councillor Williamson?
Hello, Chloe.
Hi.
With picking up on Kirsty's point, with regard to health and safety and mitigating the risks around, obviously the health and safety policy is quite prescriptive, but on the other hand, there is elements introduced like duty of care, where you have good signage down there pointing out without certain risks, being careful and also things which perhaps mitigate in the eyes of the Health and Safety Act, possibly.
Yeah, appropriate signage would be beneficial, I imagine.
Councillor Stewart?
Yeah, when I read this, I was along the same lines as thinking as Councillor Truman, that I think it would be something that we really need to look at how we can actually support this initiative and it will be from both communities, and I'm very supportive of finding a way.
Any other queries?
Through the chair. Hi. Good afternoon, Chloe. Just a couple of quick questions from me. Look, I'm in support of this. I think communities that want to take ownership and get something done should be applauded. So you have my full support for this. I just had one question to ask. Had you considered investigating whether you could set up a trust or an incorporated society to take ownership of the jetty?
It's a possibility. Again, somebody at the end of the day has to be liable and has to own an entity like that. And I guess what I would say to that, and that is probably our last course of resort, is we set up it seems a little bit ridiculous that we have to set up an entire incorporated society to own a jetty when a council is already managing multiple jetties across the district. Yep. And I, Kirsty's point, I guess, you know, we don't have that many services that could deliver to rural and smaller communities like ours.
Okay.
So,
Too true. Okay, thank you.
Councillor Body? Good, nice to see you again, Chloe. How's the farming going?
farming's going brilliant.
Excellent.
Yep, loving this rain.
You still got the ramp, which seems to be a bit of a hassle as well. If you read one of the letters that came in from Mr. Murphy, he talks about road safety, people being agitated and short tempers. It takes much longer, I suppose, to launch the boat. So effectively the pontoon is going to replace the wharf. So it's not going to assist in the launching of boats or anything like that, is it?
It'll assist significantly. So what's happening at the moment is people are having to walk on potentially to the boats, and there's no way to hold the boats on the side, and you're having to get people who are dropping their cars. So the time taken to bring people down to the... Whereas you could literally just launch your boat, get out, jump on the jetty, and it's nice and simple.
You ever been at Little Acacia Bay on a busy afternoon?
Probably,
It's
some
the
moons
same.
ago.
It's the same, but I support what you're trying to do.
Thank you.
Cool. Okay. So what was that second recommendation, Helen? I think, you know, like from my perspective, I think it's great that we're doing something in that, up in that area. What a wonderful community, got out, got off their proverbials and did the necessary fundraising, all that sort of thing. That needs to be applauded. And if we can help in one small way, as long as their health and safety, as long as the conditions are all met, as far as they're concerned, it has our full support. And as Councillor Truman says, we don't come out of the sun up there very much. Yeah, we're not there, not that present very often. So here's our chance to get a good bit of goodwill too. So
okay, can I give you the wording for this alternative?
Okay. Thank you. All right. Okay. So Council agrees to enter into an agreement for sale and purchase with Mr. Murphy for the pontoon jetty to be installed at Lake Ohakuri, and that such agreement is conditional upon Council's Chief Executive being satisfied with the conditions of all necessary consents required for the installation and use of the pontoon jetty, a report from an independent and suitably qualified engineer on the installation, structural integrity, suitability and design, advice received from the manufacturer of the product or a suitably qualified professional on maintenance recommendations for pontoon jetty structure, Council's ability to feasibly maintain and monitor the jetty to a professional standard. Signage and that sort of thing is Councillor Jollins. Do we need to put something about the necessary health and safety signage in there? Would that be one of the conditions?
Signage would come within just our day-to-day management of the structure.
Okay. B, all necessary consents required for the installation and use of the jetty be successfully transferred to Council. All right. There it is there. Do we have a mover? Can move by Councillor Stewart, seconded by Councillor Truman. All those in favour, please say aye. Those against? Carried. Thanks very much. Thank you, Chloe.
Thank you for your support, everyone. It's appreciated.
And I've dropped off. I got too excited. Rightio, where are we up to, guys? 5.7, 100 Kinloch Road, tree removal. Mike? Okay, thanks, Anna. Right, Michael.
Hi, welcome again. Good afternoon. The background to this project is we are seeking to install a second access to the Kinloch wastewater treatment plant, which is an all-weather access. The access we have at the moment, which comes off just past the bridge at Lyland Drive after heavy rain, there's a big ponding area. It can be up to 1 metre deep, and operators can't access the site. So we've got a lot of work proposed at the Kinloch wastewater plant, as you're aware, over the next few years, and an alternative access to make sure we've got access at all times is proposed, which is on see on the map on page 2. The problem we have is a tree, which is not, the tree itself in its location is not impeding access, but the root zone of the tree spreads across the proposed vehicle crossing. And the arborist's advice is that excavating to install a vehicle crossing would in the long term kill the tree. So we're asking for that tree to be removed. The alternative proposed by the arborist is to install a plastic mat, which is like a grid type mat with say 60 mils deep, and you fill that with soil and it protects the red zone, but you create a bit of a hump in the crossing, and it's not that friendly for big trucks because we have some big tankers and things going in and out of there. So in the long term, the maintenance of that type of thing is a bit, how long will
So just one poplar tree to go?
Yep, it's at there's a long string of poplar trees when you go to Kinloch on the right hand side, and it's the very last tree on that string.
Okay. Does the chairman of the Kinloch committee have any comments on that?
Yeah, so I mean we would like to go to tender on this as soon as possible, but we could exclude this, the crossing. Okay, no, yeah, we need to come back to you with a contract to award related to this project anyway, which is. Yeah.
So you're requesting to defer it, Barry, or?
Well, no, I'm just like if we're taking it down.
Yeah.
I mean, I thought it was like a month immediately.
Yeah.
So there's a tender, but there's also the need for a resource consent if we're treating it as a protected tree. So there'll be opportunities there for that to happen.
Sure. Councillor Jollins?
No, I was just going to clarify that because it's potentially a protected tree, we'd need a resource consent before we took it down anyway, so that would need to be notified.
Is it a protected tree?
My understanding is that we're treating it as if it was
because it's in a line of protected trees.
Because we don't specifically know whether or not this specific one is or not. The line is, but is this last one, we don't really know, but we're treating it, which is the right thing to do, I think, treating it as if it is.
So what do you want to do? Do you want it to be defer it, or do we?
No, I think you can make the decision.
Make the decision.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
While we're talking trees and consents, can we add additional trees in the consent process to get them removed?
The normal course of events is go through the FRED committee, correct?
Well, if we're going to go to a consent hearing for this one tree, can we group others like the gum trees across the road from Countdown?
The difficulty is that each has to be assessed on its merits, and we need to get and we've been through this before, they need to get the arborist opinions. I would say that the best way of doing that will be under the review of the district plan when we look at trees, and that all that will do is essentially delay this process.
Jim, I also raise it on a more serious note with what happened in Rotorua. I'm not sure where the involvement of the council is there, but it does concern me. Even at the Kinloch Reserve, when I asked the question of our legal beagle, the fact that every fortnight our arborists go out and check those trees, having done that, that removes us. We're taking all care and responsibility to save something from happening, but it's only a matter of time, and that's what concerns me.
So trees generally, and I spoke to Councillor Rankin about this just earlier today, trees generally after Rotorua are concerning me as well, probably the thing that keep me awake at night. What we've done is contracted some external arborists to come along and do an assessment of our trees, which will triage those that are higher risk, so around playgrounds, houses, and where people congregate basically. So we're doing an assessment of those. We're also doing an assessment of all the complaints that have been made and other information that we may have on file, and see what we've done with that and get those specifically looked at. So at least if the worst happens and something does happen, we've got a peer-reviewed external advice saying this tree is safe, or you should do this, this and this to keep it safe. I'm positive that that's going to result in the need for some more trees to be removed.
I also raised one to do with the Norfolk pine at Snells Beach and Auckland Way, where they they had a real battle because the developer wanted to remove a tree. He won his battle in the end, and when it was cut down, that tree was only a matter of years away from actually falling itself, because internally it was rotting. And that's the problem that we've got. They look good, they look strong, but there are ways of that being.
CCTV. Yeah. All right, Michael. Sorry, we've divested a bit, haven't we? So the recommendation there, just obviously don't pull it down straight away, but we've proven to pull it down. So Barry and Roseanne, will you be able to notify the group, the Kinloch representative group? Would have been a good first job for them actually, but never mind. So the recommendation is there. Did I have a mover? Moved by Councillor Kingy, seconded by Councillor Rankin. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Those against? Carried.
Just to add to it, it says in the recommendation replacement popular. I hope it's not a popular, it's put back there. How do I get back here? How do I get back to the start? Oh, that's, yeah. Right. 5.8. Updates to Taupo District Council traffic control devices. Oh, Dennis. Good afternoon
Surprise,
again,
Your
Dennis.
Worship.
Nice to see you.
Yes, Your Worship, this would have ordinarily gone to Fred, but the last Fred meeting was cancelled, and it relates to some parking outside of this building down through to this side of Hugh Street down to Te Raupanga Street, and I refer you to the plan on page 202, I think it is. And if you have a look at that plan, you'll see there are some parking areas in red, a bank of 7, a bank of 9 and one on its own, and the proposal is to turn those into 90-minute parks.
So what are the reds at the moment?
I believe they're all-day parking.
All day, is it? And across the roads all day?
Yep.
Yeah.
Through your worship.
Yes,
Councillor
Councillor Williamson.
Obviously this is to do with time restrictions, but are there any car parks? I remember a few minutes ago I mentioned perhaps the possibility of putting a disabled car park in front of the, down there, at least in front of the office, our chamber, for a disabled car park.
Through the chair, that conversation was around what's number 1 there, or number 1, there was that single park there, and that position wasn't wide enough for a disabled park because of the driveways either side.
So the closest disabled one would be the medical centre?
Yes.
You could add more, another disabled car park, but a disabled car park takes up more space than than one park, so you would end up losing, would it be 2, Dennis?
2
for
parks.
1?
2 parks.
Yeah, the difficulty you have here is you're limited by the number of vehicle entrances into the property, so that all of those car parks are right up against the various vehicle entry points.
Very good. Okay. Everyone happy with that?
The nearest disabled one is number 2, is it?
That's
Yeah.
correct, yes.
So that don't seem to be too far. There's a footpath right way through.
A little distant, be 50 metres, 80 metres probably, somewhere around there.
Remembering that by putting these restrictions in theory there'll be more availability of car parks down there anyway, and your mobility card doubles your time restriction, so you're allowed to double the posted restriction if you've got a mobility card showing.
All right, any other questions of Dennis? Recommendation there? Could I have a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Boddy, seconded by Councillor Williamson. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. It's against. Carried. Right. Easement request on Tongariro domain. Mr. Nathan Maury. Good afternoon, Nathan. Happy New Year.
Unison have requested an easement over Tongariro domain. Most of it is within the existing road at Story Place, but part of it goes across the domain towards the museum. The purpose of this is to increase the security of the power supply to the CBD, which is already pretty much over their limit. So yeah, they're just requesting that they are able to ensure the security of power supply.
Cool. Any questions of Nathan? So it's all under the ground, obviously?
Yes, it's all underground. It will be thrusted underground, so there'll be no trenches, no digging. It should be all be reasonably contained.
Cool. Councillor Hickling.
Yeah, I believe perhaps not that bit, but the bit that runs along the domain, there's an existing line. It's going to be, they're going to hook up to one, then disconnect that so that they can get 2 separate feeders in. Yeah, so unfortunately I was unaware of the contents of the report which came to you until it came out in the agenda. So I'm aware there is some contradictions in the 2 reports. We don't believe, if Story Place is straightened, it's all underground, it should not affect the services too much.
So through the chair, the red line is all in the existing road reserve, and the plan is to actually do work in the, I forget the terminology, the local purple reserve, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, Mr. Lewis can explain. We had a discussion on this. So, yeah.
Yes, through the chair. These plans were sent through to everyone in one of the councillor weekly update prior to Christmas. So we've been in discussion with Unison for some time about this upgrade. We've certainly made them aware of the proposed project. They need to do this sooner rather than later. Yeah. Yeah. It would be great to have everything aligned, but it's not always possible.
Put the speaker on, Barry. Sorry.
So officially that this was supposed to go to the Fred Committee.
Yeah, I'm not
yeah,
worried
no, so I'm just saying, so officially that's the only bit that we're really considering, because that's the only bit that the Fred Committee would have had the opportunity to go over. So what would you like to know about?
Well, it's all underground, I
Yes.
assume.
Yes.
So there's not going to be any damage to the trees or the...
No, we've looked at that and we've said to Unison we don't want any damage to the trees. The thrusting should be contained enough and the trees large enough that any potential damage to the roots shouldn't have any lasting impact.
Okay, thank you.
Just ask a question because I'm struggling with the map. The first one, the top one on page 206, the blue line is the required easement area.
Yeah.
And if we go to what Councillor Hickling was talking about, the next one down shows the blue, but on page 210, that's all in red. So as Mr. Strong was just said, that's still roadside reserve. Why is the blue line there with the red in between it?
I think through the chair I can answer this. The photograph, so you've got the, I'm just trying to find the number, sorry. Page 2 of the report, the second photograph, so that's one down the bottom, shows a section of blue line.
Yeah.
That is in the reserve land, because the public road finishes where that blue line starts.
Yeah.
So that road is in reserve land, hence the need for the easement.
The bottom line is if it's in road reserve, no easement's required.
Yes, they have a right.
That's the difference.
Yep.
Right.
So all roads roads in the district, any what are they called? Network
Utility network.
They are
provi-
entitled and permitted without our approval. Essentially, we get discussion around road
with
opening and stuff
reasonable
like that.
conditions.
But they are able to put that in. So it's only when they go off that road reserve that we have an ability to have a say.
I don't know what's planned through the reserve land, but certainly within the road reserve we do as best we can to ensure that location best suits our needs.
Right, Nathan. Back to you. That's it.
Yeah,
So
and
the
again,
easement.
with the reserve, we don't know what the plans are moving forward, so we just have to work with what's in front of us. And at the moment, we believe this is a priority for the CBD.
Okay.
But
All right,
Unison have accepted the fact that there is planting over that easement on the, the one that goes through to the bowling club.
Some of that planting has been taken out to try and open up once we took over the third green. So where it goes through, there is actually
Yeah, where
I
it
believe
goes
there's
through.
no planting, but there are the two trees further up. Yes.
Yeah, well, because there's Kate Bush, was it? The women's rights. There's a garden there with white camellias and stuff in.
Yeah, no, I assure you we'll take all care to make sure that all vegetation is protected and is still there once they're finished.
Okay, thank you.
Kate Bush.
Is it Kate Bush or pardon?
She was a singer, wasn't she?
Oh, okay. Well, what's
Kate Shepherd. Shepherd, is it?
Kate Shepherd. Yeah.
School C, 5 subjects.
Well, I know it was. I mean, it was close.
Oh, it's Kate Shepherd.
It was close. So,
All right.
Well, there's a garden there. There's a garden there for Kate Shepherd.
Is there?
Yes.
Well, I didn't know that. Did you know that, Nathan?
Yeah, there's a garden there.
Right, see how. All right, submits the recommendation there.
Just one other quick question. I may have read
Thank you
the
so
paper incorrectly. I was just looking at the document supported by Unison. So we're talking about some extra power poles and feeder boxes and things. Yeah, really?
Yeah, again, that's all in the road corridor.
Oh, that's...
Yeah. So yeah, it's separate to the easement over the reserve, which we're considering at the moment, unfortunately.
Because there's some of that's in our new areas that we've just done up to look beautiful. And we're putting boxes in there.
Well,
Well,
as
they
of
are.
right, they can do that, can't they?
Oh, really? Can we have some conversation with them, really?
We are aware of projects, especially with Keep New Zealand Beautiful, which have funding for painting up and beautifying boxes, and we're working on those with Chorus at the moment. So
Yeah,
we
I'd
can
like
look
to
to doing
think,
that with
yeah.
Unison as well.
Okay, yeah, if we could adopt that with Unison, maybe we have some sort of collaboration, because this is, I'm sorry, as ugly as anything.
Yeah, so there will probably be some modifications, minor modifications needed to the easement. Ella and Nigel will look at that for us, and I'm not sure if that's possible to be included as one of the conditions, but I'll talk to them about
Yeah,
that.
if you could, that would be awesome, because we're trying to be helpful, and it's for everyone's mutual benefit, but there are some quite ugly visual implications for this. Okay.
Councillor Stewart? Are you right? All right. Okay. Recommendation there. Thank you, Nathan. Do I have a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Stewart, seconded by Councillor Hickling. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Those against? Carried. Thanks. Righty-ho. 5.10. Adoption of supporting information for the draft long-term plan. 2018-28 consultation document, including the draft revenue and financing policy, to be sent away to Audit New Zealand. Yes. Thanks, Alan.
we share. We share.
Yeah.
That's all right. It's only paper.
Yeah, driving, I think.
Yeah.
Why are you driving?
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah, go carefully. Okay, Hadley.
Right. So essentially, this item and the following four, so there's actually 5 items in a row here, are to adopt for audit everything that we discussed at the council workshop last Thursday. So essentially, this is just a formality. Adopting those documents, they go off to audit, and audit will give us an opinion on all of the supporting information and the consultation document before we come back to you at the start of March to adopt it for consultation. So it's quite a stepped process, and this is just another step in that process to getting towards consultation with the community. So this first item is a raft of supporting information, which again we've talked about previously in previous workshops and also last week. The only difference today is that there has been some changes to some of the items there based on the new wastewater funding that I believe you're all aware of. So that has changed some of the numbers in the draft funding impact statement. Also, there's been a change in the financial strategy. So what I've done is I've handed out single copies of all of those. And then additionally, there's another item at the bottom there which you should be able to click on, which takes you through to the Taupo Northern Outlet and CBD investigation report. Now that's just based on the workshop that you've had previously, and essentially just creates a link for audit to see why we're talking about this Northern Outlet in our consultation document. So we have options within the consultation document, so audit can see it. We're just formally adopting that report today. So that's this first wave of supporting information, and then there's 2 recommendations there. We'll get on to the consultation document, and that's the fifth item. Yeah. Okay, in relation to yep. So that was all sent out to you previously, and there were no changes made to that at the workshop last week, so they've just flowed through as per what you were previously circulated with. Might be easier if we come and have a quick look at what you're referring to.
I can tell you the number should be 200, so if it's 250 we need to fix it, because it's 200 is what it should be. So
It can get a bit confusing if there's lines put through numbers. So it is 200.
So we'll double check that, but 200 is definitely the limit. Yep.
That change was made, I believe, because of this particular building. So we had 6, but then because the staff aren't actually based here, we changed it back to 5 because that's where the staff are based. has. Yes, it has. It has been changed in the updated versions. Yeah, again, with track changes, sometimes it can create blank pages throughout the document. Mm-hmm. So that was the one you raised last Thursday around companion dogs. So I've talked to Scott Devonport around that. His advice was that they would be reluctant to add take away the charge for companion dogs, because it is tricky to determine which is a companion dog and which is not a companion dog. He said it's much easier for, say, seeing eye dogs, because there's a formal process for those dogs. He did say that if you did want to look at something, there is a potential for a reduction in the charge of, say, $5 or $10 for companion dogs. But he did say his strong recommendation would be to not go there, just from a managing it perspective.
It's a bit of a dilemma. If it's agreed by council for an action to take place, how can a staff member?
So through the chair, I guess what the staff are saying is that that it's really hard to implement because of that determination, because there's no criteria. So a seeing eye dog or the other dogs, they have to go through a certification process. So it's really clear that they do apply. The concern on this is, do we just take people's word that it is, and so therefore they get it for free? So all of a sudden my dog becomes one of these dogs, because there's no way of us doing that. I guess the other way of doing it is that you could leave it to Fred to determine on a case by case, because the lady who came in said there was only, I think she said 4 or 5 of these things in the district, so you're only talking a very small number. You could delegate Fred to do it on a case by case on an annual basis. It would become very clear to you as a committee which of those are, and you just excuse those fees. So it wouldn't need to be in the fees and charges schedule, but it's something that you could allow to happen.
Therefore, I'm just wondering, Mr. Chairman, whether that lady that submitted could be contacted, because reading up on some of these dogs, not necessarily in New Zealand, they do have to be a trained dog, like a disability dog. So there is a criteria that they have to go through to be accepted. So I'm pretty sure that would be the case. So maybe we can defer it to the Fred Committee to do that. Right, thank you.
One other query you raised as well, which I followed up on fees and charges, was around the bond for the Mangakino pool. So got some advice on that, was that outside of, the Mangakino pool is sometimes used as a school pool, and at that time there's no TDC staff there, it's taken over by the school, so a bond is charged in that instance, whereas with the Turangi Aquatic Centre, that is managed entirely by TDC staff at all times, therefore no bond is required.
And just finally on that, it's Treasury Management, Mr. Chairman. I'm sorry to raise again, it's the use of the TIL fund. I was interested to read that the Council intends to maintain the TIL fund assets in perpetuity, which to me would lead me to believe that it can't be used for debt repayments or anything like that. So I'm stand by my argument about it. Net and gross debt gets a bit complicated. Thank you.
Yeah, the only thing I might add is if just those resolutions both have as amended, because there are amendments in those documents, so it just makes it clear that we're adopting the amended documents. Yep.
Just, are we signing that off for consultation? No.
This one.
Okay. Do all at once, yes.
All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Okay. We have the rates for emissions. Draft.
Yep, so that's also again been discussed previously. It's just it could have been included actually in the previous item, but we separated it out just from a clarity perspective, but again just a formality. It's 512 in between.
512.
Yep, so you have the latest version of that in hard copy in front of you. The changes that have been made from the version that you saw last Thursday are identified in yellow. So I'm happy to go through those or approach it whichever way you'd like. Happy to take questions. Sure. Yep, so there's a section there in yellow on the third page in, which is around your values. So any queries on that? Right, so then if we keep moving through, unfortunately it's not page numbered, but there's a section called About Our Finances, which comes after the Counting Our Assets infographic. That has just been updated again to include the numbers based on the wastewater charges, wastewater amounts, so that's just been updated. Sorry, the page following that one.
I know, but I can read that down the bottom. We are going to have a page that we can read, please.
Yeah, sorry.
Because this has come through 3 or 4 times.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
it
just
has.
to be clear, this is just the content, so it's going to be designed up and it's going to look beautiful. This
Yeah.
is just, placeholder information, and absolutely, it's the same graphic we use in the annual report, so the designer actually holds the true copy of that.
Okay.
Yeah, my understanding is audit don't concern themselves too much with the pictures; they're more concerned with the content. So,
No, I just can't read it.
yeah, I know,
Trying
I
to
know, I'm the
adjust-
same. I can't
trying
read
to
it.
adjust my glasses.
Yeah. So the copy that you get for adoption at consultation time, that will be nice and clear.
Thank you.
Yeah. So the following page, so there's a change there just around the LGCI description, and then the new forecast rates requirement and rates increase graph. Going over to the next page, there's just a description there between the differences between LGCI and CPI. So we're just going to do that visually just for the community so they understand the difference and have a brief description as well. The following page from that is the rates for different property types. Now those have changed as well based on the new wastewater amounts. So they have changed. You'll notice if you compare that version to last week's, there's a change in that. If you keep moving through the document, get to the infrastructure strategy description, you'll see that there's a new issue in there. Now that issue is replicated across both the infrastructure strategy and the financial strategy. So I've handed those out just so you've got copies of those one pages that have changed in the infrastructure strategy and financial strategy. But essentially all they say is what's described there. Keep moving through. There's a table there called planned infrastructure spending. You'll see the bottom line is highlighted because that's been updated with the new wastewater numbers. And then the final change is further through, once you get past the Acacia Bay water description, there is just working to reduce our wastewater spills. So just a description around what's been proposed and 2 options there, which are again also replicated in the infrastructure strategy. So that's the key changes from last Thursday. So I would reiterate, this is the time for content changes, because once it goes to audit, they will give us an opinion on whatever we send them. So it's kind of the last chance before it goes to audit.
Yeah, I just wanted to make a statement about, because I made some comments on the vision and value stuff this morning, and I got a little bit hammered, which I have to say for the record is not really very fair. I've been consistent with my opinion on what we should do in terms of the way we frame it up. I certainly don't want to get into discussion on what a different word means and everything, but what I do want to say, I think it's really important that the vision that we have, and I have said this time and time again, aligns with the stuff that the TDC and the team at Gareth have worked on. I do think they need to work together. And I think for me, the missing piece, and it's more in the interpretation rather than the direction of travel for it, has been really clear in our own minds what our role as the TDC is in living that vision, what our purpose is, how we will bring that to life. And I'm not quite sure we've got that 100% articulated correctly, but at the end of the day, I will go with the views of the majority, but I just wanted to reiterate that. I'm not, I mean, it's great that we've done it, and I agree with the direction of travel, but I've always been consistent in saying I think there's some extra pieces that we're missing, and I think we will confuse people slightly with our vision, the council vision, love the place we live, which I know is a tagline, but it's all getting mixed up. So I just wanted to make that point. But for a consultation document, I think the designer's done a great job, and I think Lisa and her team have done a great job articulating the values that we've come up with, but I still say they're not values in the true sense when you do a vision statement. They are aspirations or our commitments or their outcomes that we want to achieve. And for me, what was missing in that piece was our sense of community responsibility, our guardianship, our stewardship, however you wanted to do that. And I feel like we're a little bit silent on the whole concept of collaboration or inclusiveness. So just wanted to add that in for the record. Thank you.
Sorry. 5/15. Council engagements, any changes? No changes.
Well, it's what I've been telling people based on some emails that I had, but we can check that.
Okay, well, do you want to change it, or?
I would prefer I reckon we're going to need quite a bit of time for that site tour.
So we start at 1 o'clock then?
1:30, because we're doing a site tour before.
Oh, beforehand, okay.
Are you and my fellow councillors happy with that?
Yeah. Okay, can you change that please, Shani? Thank you. Alright, no other changes? Okay, move the recommendation for the engagements. Thanks, Councillor Jolland, seconded by Councillor Stewart. All those in favour, please say aye. Those against? Carried. Members' reports. Any members' verbal reports or any tabled ones, if they could come up to the front table, please. Thank you very much. We don't want to hear about Christmas parties or anything like that. New Year's Eves. Just a quick one. And I opened a sheep milking plant at Waikino Station. Incredible, Waihora. Millions of dollars of investment. And there on Tuesday. What a wonderful attribute it is to to the local economy. Sheep milk is worth $8 billion a year annually, and there's 2 or 3 locations now in the Taupo area that are doing it. And I was lucky enough to be with he's called the Sultan of Dubai for the morning. So it was quite impressive, and also various investors. So we wouldn't even know in the towns what's going on out there in the community, the millions of dollars of this infrastructure that's been put in, and of course low NDA outlets over the lake, so no nitrogen going into the lake. So anyway, if anyone gets the opportunity to go there, Waikino Station is well worth a visit. Are we? Okay, good. Yeah, you're a good man. Yeah. Yeah, no, it's very interesting. Very good. All right, that's it. Mover, please. The members' reports be accepted. All those in favour. And now who's moved there? Councillor Stewart, seconded Councillor Jollins. And my battery's gone. All those in favour, please say aye. Those against? Carried. Right. What have we got now?
It's under confidence. You need to give us some time.
Yeah. Okay. So we just